Great. All right, welcome everyone to the panel titled Incorporating Community-Supported Agriculture and Box Programs. This session is moderated by folks from Farmers Market Coalition and Ecology Center. So I'll take a second to introduce ourselves. I'm Rachel Ward. I'm the GusNIP Project Manager at FMC, and I'll pass it to Jenna to introduce herself.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jenna. I'm the Farmers Market Access and Equity Program Manager at the Ecology Center, and I'll pass it to Jackie.
Good morning. I am Jackie, and I am one of the Farmers Market Access and Equity Program Coordinators at the Ecology Center.
Great, thank you. So before we introduce you to our panelists, we want to take a moment to just talk about CSAs and box programs and why we've chosen to cover both of these models in this session. So community-supported agriculture, or CSAs, have a long history of development around the world. One of the first to dream up the model was Booker T. Whatley, a Black author, horticulturalist and professor at Tuskegee University. Whatley identified 10 commandments that he considered essential for successful farming in the 1960s and 70s, and included in these commandments was the concept of a clientele membership club, in which club members paid an upfront fee to pick their own produce all season long. This system enabled farmers to pay for necessary seeds and equipment at the beginning of the season without taking out a loan. It saved growers time and effort required to harvest produce, and it also granted club members agency in choosing the food they were eating. So it's now considered two separate farming models that can be used: community-supported agriculture and pick your own, but both models are really foundational to many small and mid-sized farms and are only becoming more popular as demand for fresh local food continues to grow. You can read more about the history of the CSAs at the link that Jenna is going to put in. So as I said, grown and evolved into many formats, but at their core, they serve as a subscription-based box program where the customer often buys a share at the beginning of the season in exchange for a regular farm. This upfront investment helps the farmer purchase seeds, equipment, and supplies needed to start the season strong. Our conversation today will be specifically focused around CSAs that implement SNAP incentive programs. And these programs offer reduced price shares for customers that pay using SNAP benefits. Three of our panelists today, Holly Hutchison of Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition, Megan Larmer of Glenwood, and Allie Jacobs of Mill City Grows, are well-versed in incentive programs for CSAs. I'm going to pass it off to Jackie to talk about farmers market box programs.
Thanks, Rachel. So yeah, in the past year especially, we've seen a rise in farmers markets raising awareness of CSA programs and adopting veggie box programs themselves. These programs grew in popularity during the pandemic when customers were looking to access healthy food as safely as possible. Farmers markets quickly began aggregating veggie boxes from their vendors to offer customers a curbside pickup option. In some models, customers can choose the produce in their box, and in other models, boxes come with a standard selection. Customers of these programs have loved accessing fresh produce in a contactless or mostly contactless way, and farmers market vendors are happy to have another avenue to sell their produce. Some farmers markets have even leveraged these programs in their fundraising efforts. And today, Megan Kenny from North Coast Growers Association in California will represent their Farmers Market Veggie Box program in the panel. We decided to combine the conversation of CSAs and Veggie Box programs for several reasons. CSAs and Veggie Box programs support direct marketing farmers and seek to deliver farm fresh food to families. And both face similar challenges with SNAP EBT payment systems and offering nutrition incentives. So we've put together a fact sheet that includes some common questions and answers around the USDA Food and Nutrition Service regulations for accepting SNAP EBT with CSAs and box programs. And Jenna will link to this fact sheet in the chat. If you have any detailed questions that go beyond those included in this fact sheet, be sure to reach out to FNS. All right, I'll pass it back to Rachel.
Thanks, Jackie, and hopefully that fact sheet is useful to y'all. So to kick us off and get us started, I just want to ask our panelists to each take a couple minutes to introduce themselves and the way that their organization supports SNAP incentive programs in CSAs or farmers market box programs. And Holly, let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Hutchison. I'm the Executive Director of the Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition. We are a coalition of CSA farms, about 85 farms that are in throughout the state of Oregon and also Southern Washington. Some of the things we do to help our farmers is a lot of them want to offer their shares for SNAP, payment by SNAP, but they don't know how to do it. And so we can help walk them through the process and give them information on what SNAP covers, what it doesn't cover. Basically, we help them understand how it can work. And we also administer our Double Up Food Bucks program. So this is our incentive program. We are part of a group of folks in the state who have secured Double Up funding, and we work with the legislation to do that. And so we represent our farmers in getting that money for them.
Great. Megan Larmer, you want to go next?
Sure. So the Glenwood Center for Regional Food and Farming, which is based in the Hudson Valley in New York, helps to facilitate the Hudson Valley CSA Coalition, which is a coalition of a little over 100 farms in our region who use that CSA model. And the program that we operate directly related to SNAP is called CSA as a SNAP. And it's a GUSNIP pilot program that has leveraged this federal funding to create a revolving loan fund to try to address the sort of structural gap in payment between the way that CSA farms receive dollars and the way that SNAP EBT users receive their dollars. So the revolving loan is able to purchase shares at the start of the season so that those farms can then sell those shares for SNAP dollars with an incentive also being provided by that loan fund. The SNAP dollars then earmarked to go back into the revolving loan fund, and we fundraise to fill it back up. So we're in the second year of piloting that and have offered various technical assistance alongside that for the 5 pilot farms we've engaged, such as marketing. We've also been able to offer training to the broader coalition on accepting SNAP EBT payment, and increasing access to CSA models through things like language justice and other types of skills that our farms have asked for. We do an annual survey of our farms, and consistently year on year, more than 60% identify wanting to serve low-income members of their community as a very high priority. So we're really taking our cue from them.
Thanks, Megan. Happy to have you here. Allie, you want to go next?
Good afternoon. I'm Allie Jacobs. I'm the Director of Programs at Mill City Grows. We're an urban agriculture and food justice organization in Lowell, Massachusetts. We have an urban farm, a number of community gardens and school gardens, and we run quite a few different food access programs, along with education and a bunch of other stuff. So the way that we interact with nutrition incentives, so we have a CSA using our own farm's produce and then supplemented somewhat by regional produce. We have a partnership with the Massachusetts DTA to do a SNAP, an auto SNAP CSA. So this past summer we had an 80-member CSA, and then this winter we had a 50-member CSA. We also have a healthy incentives program in Massachusetts, which is an additional nutrition incentives, and it's specific to fruits and vegetables grown at local farms. We also are participating in food as medicine initiatives in Massachusetts, including flex services through Mass Health. And we've also collaborated with area hospitals and health organizations to do medically tailored farm shares we've done cardiac recovery patients, and we're also working on a diabetes farm share going forward. And we're doing some additional other work in the food as medicine realm as well, which I think in the next year or two will result in a new version of the CSA that's even more medically tailored.
Thanks, Allie. Really happy to have you here. I see your fan club is in the chat, cheering you on too. So great to have that. Megan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I am the manager for cooperative distribution for NCGA, the North Coast Growers Association. We operate 10 farmers markets in Humboldt County in Northern California. And this year we started a new produce box program, a multi-farm sort of CSA produce box in response to COVID. So it is a curbside pickup box. People order week to week, so we do accept SNAP benefits for that. And we also participate in Market Match, which is an incentive program. So the $20 box for our EBT customers or SNAP customers is only $10.
Thanks, Megan. Happy to have you here. And I want to give Allie and Megan a chance to dive a little bit deeper into their programs, since they are working with a single farm or a single market. So Allie, we can start with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about the type of format and model that you're using for your CSA?
Sure. I forgot to mention, we do also have a mobile market program, which we also use SNAP and nutrition incentives along with farmers market coupons. But the CSA really developed this year as part of COVID. A lot of our folks, we couldn't run the mobile market for a couple of months, and then some of our folks were having trouble getting to it for various reasons. And I think that COVID also helped to just reveal some of the transportation challenges that were happening for people generally, and made it easier to talk about those issues. So we have been running out of our office space. We farm, all of our farmland is within Lowell, and we farm about 5 acres there. And then all of our storage and packing and distribution is out of our office, which is also in Lowell, in downtown. So we have people come and pick up from our office, has been 2 to 3 times a week, depending on the season. We did a limited delivery program as well, just for people who were having mobility issues, or also forced to quarantine, or other issues directly related to COVID. As I said in my intro, we work directly with the DTA. So that's the Department of Transitional Assistance in Massachusetts, is the SNAP administrator. And they have a program where we can actually submit applications of our clients to them, and then they get their SNAP funds automatically deducted on a monthly basis. So they can actually pre-enroll in the CSA as if, as if credit card customers can also pre-enroll in a CSA and pay up front. So they pay up front by filling out this application, and then it gets handled from there. As I mentioned before, we have the Healthy Incentives Program as well in Massachusetts, which is a huge help. So that is a reimbursement program. People in Massachusetts who spend SNAP funds at a farmer's market, farm stand, or another authorized retailer receive an immediate reimbursement of those funds up to a certain amount per month based on family size. So $40, $60, or $80, depending on how many people are in your families. And so that really allows people to focus their spending on local fruits and vegetables, rather than feeling like they have to make that decision between, how far can this go at the grocery store? How far can it go at the farmer's market? So we've had just a huge amount of success enrolling people in those programs and working with the local agencies who are already doing that work.
Thanks, Allie. Yeah, that the automatic reimbursement program that y'all have is super unique and really interesting. I'm sure that folks probably have additional questions about that. I want to move to Megan, but I did see a request come through the chat for presenters to put their contact info in the chat if folks want to reach out to you directly about specific questions. So if you're up for that, please put your email. And Megan, yeah, tell us more about the format and model that y'all are using for your farmers market box program.
Yeah, so like I said, it's a multi-farm CSA. We're using sort of a traditional model, so people can't choose what produce is in their boxes. They just sort of get what they get. I always try to include a fruit, a leafy green, a couple staples like potatoes, onions, carrots, and then some of the fun seasonal items like artichokes, snap peas, things like that. We also offer add-ons for items like meat, cheese, honey, things that aren't produce items that people can sort of add on to their box. We distribute our boxes through our farmers markets. So this past summer, we had 2 farmers markets that we were distributing through. We have reserved parking spaces, so customers can literally just come up and like put their name on a sheet of paper and hold it up to their window, and we load the box up for them. So it's completely contactless. We have a Google Forms that people can order through. So we process the whole payment offline through offline vouchers. So we don't even need to swipe the card or anything that day, which has been really valuable for a lot of our high-risk community members.
Yeah, thank you. And I know another question we have too, and I think this is particularly applicable to box programs, Megan, is how do you use staff and volunteer time to efficiently pack those boxes?
Yeah, I receive deliveries weekly on Fridays for our Saturday distribution. The farmers come to our office, so I can be multitasking and doing office work, sending out emails, that sort of thing while I'm receiving deliveries. And I also weigh out all of the produce as I'm receiving them. And then in the afternoon, we have a partner organization who runs a community gardens program who actually is donating their produce to our SNAP boxes. So she comes and brings the produce and then helps me pack all of the boxes. So her time is paid for by a grant through the Community Gardens program. So it's really just me by myself almost. And yeah, so we can pack about, after everything's all weighed out by myself, the 2 of us can pack 50 or so boxes in under an hour. So it's a pretty efficient system we've got going. At first, it was not so. We definitely went through a couple different ways of doing it where we would weigh out half of the veggies and then pack them all up and weigh out the other half. So we've definitely gotten much better with our system. Over the summer when we had many more, we were doing like 100, 150 boxes. We used our social media platform to sort of solicit volunteers who could help us. And we also had a college intern who helped us over the summer as well.
Yeah, that's great. I know that a lot of folks working with farmers markets or farmers market people out there are probably finding those tips valuable. And I know box programs became very popular during COVID as farmers markets were trying to navigate a lot of those regulations around social distancing and safe practices. So it's great to see kind of that emergence, and we'll see if they stick around with farmers markets. I think the efficiency piece has a lot to do with it, right? In terms of how much you're able to how much capacity you have to continue that sort of program. I want to give Holly and Megan Larmer a chance to speak to some of these higher level trends with CSAs or farmers market box programs that y'all have seen over the years. So Holly, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that we do is with our member farms, we collect data from them every year to understand how many SNAP shares they've sold. And, like I mentioned in my intro, we also are the Double Up Food Bucks Administrator for CSA for the state. So we have a lot of data on how many SNAP shares are sold and how many, the impact that Double Up Food Bucks, which is our matching program, has on the shares. And we can really see that when Double Up Food Bucks is available, it has a tremendous impact. Like many more people are able to purchase CSA shares with SNAP. So our program is up to $200 SNAP match just for Double Up Food Bucks eligible food, and it has like more than twice the people enroll with SNAP when Double Up Food Bucks is available than when it is not available. So that's why we've directed so much of our energy into working with our state partners and figuring out how to get the project funded. Let me see what the other trends are. We've seen, so about 70% of our farmers are young farmers who've been farming less than 8 years. And we've seen over time that more and more farmers want to be able to accept SNAP for their CSAs. So, back 10 years ago, there may be 1 or 2 farmers, but now like 70% of our farms really want to know how to do it and how to get their food to more, people who want to pay with SNAP. So we've seen a trend in that direction as well.
Definitely. And I know that y'all have been doing this work for a long time. So could you speak at all to any changes that you've seen specifically related to COVID and in terms of interest in CSAs or interest from farmers in being part of the coalition?
Yeah, for sure. We had a huge bump. Well, I mean, you know that CSA took off last year. So CSA shares sold out very quickly. And we did have Double Up Food Bucks in place for last year. And so CSA shares purchased without SNAP, just regular traditional model CSAs, had increased by 175% because of COVID. But when we look at the Double Up Food Bucks impact, the shares that were purchased with SNAP increased by almost 300%. So there was an impact due to COVID, of course, for folks who needed the nutrition incentive program. But that had an even larger impact on the amount of people who could access those shares. And the comments that we got, we survey all of our Double Up Food Bucks participants at the end of the season. And it was so obvious that so many people wanted that relationship with their farmer and they wanted to know how to support their farmer as well as getting healthy food. And so it's not just about how to get good food to the people who need it. It's about how do you foster that community relationship as well, beyond the traditional, only people who can afford it type of CSA model. And so being able to build that community was really apparent last year.
Definitely. Thank you. Megan, what sort of trends are you seeing in the Hudson Valley area in terms of CSAs?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Holly is describing as having happened nationally, just there's such a huge increase in CSA participation amongst our farms, as well as an increase in the number of CSA farms. We added at least 10, and I think as many as 20 new CSA farms to the coalition this year who were operating a CSA for the very first time. So the model has really been sort of kickstarted by this pandemic. And one of the trends that we're seeing even more highlighted, though it had already been sort of trending that way, is the desire to accept online payment and to have more of a digital marketplace that really works well for CSA. So both in like traditional CSA models, one of the projects that's being developed here in the Hudson Valley is the Grown By platform. It's a cooperatively owned platform of software for CSAs. So that's been like a very intense interest amongst farmers and others for a while. And with the expansion of the SNAP pilot for online purchasing, we've seen a really, really pronounced interest from our farms to see that move forward for farms as quickly as possible. Not least of all because, you know, one of the, I don't know if this counts as a CSA trend, but one of the barriers they often name to being able to achieve this goal of accepting SNAP is owning the technology, the equipment to do so. The point of sale equipment is both expensive and glitchy, as a lot of people know. So for small farms, it's really frustrating. So the idea of being able to accept SNAP payment online is really exciting. And I think this pandemic has also just pushed the CSA model even further into needing that digital fluency, right? As people try to reduce contact points as much as possible. So that's one thing we've seen. We've certainly seen a trend overall in CSAs that are sort of specializing their offerings in a certain way, so differentiating themselves amongst the field of different CSAs that are out there. So everything from herbalist CSAs to full diet CSAs to CSAs that are geared towards a specific community in diaspora or a specific ethnic community. We have an awesome CSA farmer who's growing for the Chinese American community in Chinatown and really specializing on foods that suit those foodways. So just like this incredible diversity of thought and scale across the whole region.
Yeah, that's great to think about, CSAs beyond just fruits and veggies. I know when we think about incentive programs, we're really focused on fruits and veggies too, but there are so many models out there that incorporate products from nearby closed farms too, and do a little bit of aggregation or additional products that folks can order for their CSA boxes. I want to open it up to all of our panelists and just ask, do you feel like this trend, this increase in interest in CSAs or farmers market box programs, do you think that it's something that will continue beyond COVID, especially from the farmers market perspective? Is there that interest in continuing those sorts of box programs?
So for us personally, I think that some of our farmers market customers are going to feel comfortable coming back to the farmers market and doing what they've always been doing. But we have heard just from, like new mothers, there's elder and alter abled adults who don't generally attend the farmers market that find it really convenient to just order online and come pick up a pre-packed box. We also live in a really spread out rural community where there's not a lot of access to public transportation. And we do have a lot of food deserts where there's not even a grocery store or any place people can buy fresh produce. So this summer we're looking to expand to include distribution sites in those communities versus necessarily thinking that we're going to expand our at-market offerings. Because we have just gotten so much feedback about how people love this program. So I think it will continue, but maybe not in the way that we saw it form last year.
I would say that over the course of 2020, we got our markets open late, but when we did open them, they were actually some of our busiest markets ever. So we didn't actually see a reduction of traffic at the farmers market. We're also in a really dense urban area. Right, where it can be difficult to, in some places it's difficult to get to the grocery store. In one place, we're stationed directly across the street from the grocery store, and that was actually our busiest market. So, I think but that was also the senior center, and we accept senior coupons and double them. So I think that in our context, as long as we're doing programs that incentivize healthy produce and that help pay for it in some way for people who are struggling to afford food and specifically struggling to afford nutritious food, I think we'll continue to see an upward trend. I think the only challenge is finding more funding for it. I know that in Massachusetts, we're constantly struggling to make sure that the HIP program is fully funded for the year, and currently in the process of doing that again this year. It's a yearly fun thing. And then, we're also really looking into that direction of collaborating with healthcare. And that's been a primary focus. And Lowell is a pretty unique community in which the food access providers and the health providers really talk to each other. So there's a huge amount of overlap there, and I think we're really leaning into it. So I see a lot of trends going in the direction of continuing to incentivize not just nutritious food, but also all of the public determinants of health, including physical activity, mental health, housing, everything else that really helps people thrive.
Definitely, yeah, and I love that you all have that connection with health. I'm a public health person myself, so a little biased in that way, but I love to see it when health insurance plans are offering incentives for their members to buy CSAs or discount programs for CSAs or pickups at hospitals. So I think that's definitely something to be keeping in mind as we go forward. I want to shift a little bit and talk about outreach and retention. I know that is often a challenge for individual farmers when working with CSAs in general, but is kind of exacerbated when working with customers using SNAP for CSAs because of the structure of payment and things like that. So anybody who wants to speak to some ways that you or the farms that you work with promote your program to community members using SNAP, and also work on that retention piece of keeping them throughout the season.
Sure, I can speak a little to that with the caveat that it's a huge challenge. So I don't feel like I have some amazing answer for how we've done it, but maybe it's helpful just to hear some of the efforts we've made. So one has been to reach out to and work with community health centers and to engage their nutrition educators and make sure that they're aware of the program that we're offering. Unfortunately, because of because this program that we're operating rolled out last year, and our project plan had been to begin recruitment in March. You can imagine how challenging it was to work with our community health practitioners at the outset of a pandemic to do outreach to SNAP users. So we don't have information on what the return on that investment was, but I do know that the efforts we made to build awareness among the community health providers helped make local legislators aware, helped us to connect with SNAP ED folks, and particularly with community groups. So we found that posting Facebook events or Facebook messages in various like Moms of Peekskill Facebook community group or Healthy Eating in Peekskill, that was a really great way to let people know that this is happening. We definitely got some folks back from that. So those community organizations who are working with populations likely to be using SNAP were great resources for finding other ways to promote, if that makes sense. And then another tool that we used was to send out a direct mailer. And it's a pretty expensive way of promoting as far as like return on investment goes, but we did definitely get, I think about 5 to 10 families that came specifically because of that direct mailer. And it was nice because it allowed us to tailor that marketing to people within walking distance of the CSA pickup site and people who were in a certain income bracket, so we could make a rough guess that we were targeting it. But I'll say that's work we were able to do because we're working collectively. I think that would be a really burdensome project for any individual farm to take on. And sorry, the last thing I want to say is we're really focusing on retention now. Like that's trying to build that relationship and keep people coming year on year. So doing things like collecting testimonials, asking people how they liked it, how they want us to change it, that kind of thing.
So we're a much smaller organization than the Glenwood group. So we don't have the resources to do a lot of, outreach and that kind of stuff. But what we do is we have a website with a Find Your Farm feature, and it says farms that accept SNAP. And so if people come to our website and they're looking for a farm that does allow payment by SNAP, they just have to click on that button, and it, they'll get the subset of farms that make that available to them. And so we also work, we do matchmaking in our organization. So when people come to us, we can direct them to the farm that best suits their needs. And that's kind of labor intensive, but it really helps get the right person to the right farm, which will lead into better retention, right? And so when you make that relationship, you don't have to work quite as hard the following year because they're more likely to stick around. And that's one thing we saw with Double Up Food Bucks as well is when people when the Double Up Food Bucks is not available, that relationship is broken. Like people can't afford the share the next year, and so they don't come back. But when we do have Double Up Food Bucks, our retention rate of SNAP customers is much, much greater.
Yeah. Holly, I wonder if you could speak to the CSA Share Fair that you all do, because I think that's a really interesting model for getting folks interested in CSAs.
Yeah, so this year we did it to correspond with National CSA Week, which was a couple of weeks ago, and we had to go virtual this year. We've never done it that way before, but we had a week of events leading up to our CSA Share Fair, and the events were a combination of like panel discussions around, with a bunch of farmers around specific topics like what does a CSA livestock share look like, and why is a CSA a good way to get your meat, and all of the husbandry and the humanity issues that go along with that. So we had some serious panel discussions like that people were able to engage with their farmers with. And then we also had cooking demonstrations with some local food people and chefs, and those were pretty popular. And so we'd give them a CSA box, and of course it's a winter share right now, so it's a whole bunch of kale and brassicas and stuff that are a little more hardcore CSA people are interested in. And we'd give the chefs a box, and they'd break it down, and they'd make 6 things within an hour. And so there was a lot of community engagement with that. It's really popular, and I've had a lot of requests to rewatch the videos and all of that. So it was a great way to get the CSA message out there and to get the community members to participate. And we also have, I think the biggest way we were able to broadcast the event was over Instagram. That's been a huge platform for us recently. And so it's an inexpensive way to engage with the, like Megan was saying, the community organizations that, that are working with folks who are more likely to want to buy vegetables and want to pay with them with SNAP. And so when you can target messages like that, it really helps you focus to a specific group of people. So it was a pretty positive event. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the template recipes that Jim put together. He'd be like, okay, you got any kind of green, you can fit this in here. Any
Right.
kind of root veggie, you can fit this in here. And I think that's a lot about what cooking with CSAs is that kind of flexibility and creativity, right? And learning how to cook in that intuitive way.
Right.
Allie, I saw that you unmuted. Did you want to speak to outreach efforts?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we did a lot of our outreach and continue to. We have a lot of different methods, but especially in the last, and this is Jasper, it's proper Zoom etiquette to introduce pets. But over the last year, so we had some local agencies reach out to us, and then sort of led to more of a model for us, which is to partner with agencies and onboard their clients. So I just put into the chat that we worked with the Lowell Public School District, which we work with on farm to school programming anyway. So that was a relationship that already existed. We worked with the International Institute of New England, which is a refugee resettlement organization. And they actually came to us early in the pandemic asking how they could get produce to their families. We worked with a couple of adult daycare facilities, and that's really where the delivery started to come in, because these are folks who had been coming into a central location every day. obviously most of them are seniors, and during COVID that was no longer appropriate. So they were trying to figure out how to provide the same services for people who are now homebound for the first time. And we're also working actually with the UMass Lowell on-campus student food pantry, getting produce to their students in actually a slightly different way, because some of them don't qualify for SNAP, but are food insecure. So just having those partner organizations, there are a lot of social welfare or social organizations that are working with their clients trying to solve some of these problems. And a lot of times food pantries and food banks only go so far, and they don't have control over what is coming in from various food donation streams. So it might not always be the level of nutrition that some families are looking for, or the cultural relevancy that some families are looking for. So having a local farm that can prioritize those things and assist with those specific needs. Again, just it's really about helping families to be able to reallocate the rest of their SNAP dollars or the rest of their income to other basic needs, and not have to worry as much about this one thing that we can cover.
Yeah, a common thread that I'm hearing from all of y'all is around the importance of partnerships. And I think that's often challenging for individual farmers that are trying to run incentive programs just at their one farm, right? And it really speaks to the power of networks and the power that some of these hub organizations have in being able to help farmers with that outreach, to provide, to be that source of information and matchmaking that happens between customers and farms. So very interesting, and definitely important for grantees in the room who are thinking about working with farmers and CSAs. How can you be playing that role as information provider and outreach expert to take a little bit of that load off of your farmers? We have a couple minutes left, and I just want to leave us with this last question of we see a lot of incentive programs in farmers markets, but why is it important for incentive programs to be incorporating CSAs and veggie boxes as a different type of model? And Megan, I know you haven't chatted for a minute, so we can start with you. Megan Kenny, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it just, not many people can, sorry, my dog's talking to me in the back. Not many people who are on SNAP can afford just that whole right up front cost of buying a whole season of CSA. So I feel like being able to have some sort of system in place where people can pay gradually. I love the idea of the auto SNAP in Massachusetts. We don't have anything like that in California, but I feel like it would be really helpful. It puts a lot of the burden on farmers to really get creative and figure out how to get low-income folks access to this, really high quality, fresh, nutrient dense produce that we all know everyone deserves access to. So yeah, I feel like there needs to be a better way to get SNAP payments applied for produce boxes that's less labor intensive on the front end.
I think one thing a lot of folks don't realize who don't work in the nutrition incentive world is that SNAP is only paid out once a month at the beginning of the month. And so the thing that CSA allows is you get fresh vegetables the entire month. And the thing that SNAP allows is for you to buy your food at the beginning of the month. And so by the end of the month, your SNAP dollars have run out, which means you typically purchase high energy, not necessarily nutrient dense food to sustain your family the entire month. So having a CSA share is a way of redirecting those funds into healthy food the entire month long. And so I think it's really critical that we figure out ways to make SNAP work for CSA on this continuing payment way to get the food sustained throughout the month that most SNAP users need.
Great. Got about a minute left. So Megan, Larmer, and Allie, if y'all want to speak to why is it important to have incentive programs in CSAs?
Sure. I mean, it's important because our small scale farm economy is crucial to the knitting together of communities, both rural and urban. So being able to direct these dollars there and give those farmers the opportunity to serve all of their community, for me as a social scientist and a person interested in that, is just absolutely essential. And I think, the folks who are receiving these vegetables are the most powerful advocates for why it matters. And one of the women I spoke with was taking 2 trains and walking another 20 minutes to pick up her share and bring it home to her family, where her dependents, her elderly dependents were in quarantine. There was a family of 5. Only one person had been able to maintain their job during the pandemic. And she described being able to cook with these vegetables as the highlight of her year this year, having that moment of creativity, connectivity, and health and vibrancy in this challenging time. So I think that really can't be understated. Making it available, that joy in food and that health that we get from it is crucial for all of us in our society to have.
Similar to what Megan just said, I think that relationship also, it's a sense of security for the family. So I think Megan Kenny mentioned, they don't necessarily have the ability to pay up front, but if they know that there's a relationship in which people are going to try and work with them and help them continue to be able to afford and purchase and get this food access, it's a totally different relationship than a grocery store or even a farmer's market, which might be too busy for you to really form that push and pull. In non-COVID times, you also get the chance to actually chat with each other and spend a little time like learning about each other's needs. So, from the farmer's perspective, you get to understand what kind of crops your customers are looking for. And from the customer perspective, you get to understand farming a little bit, which I think is, that's a big part of what we do in an urban agriculture organization is returning sort of the joy of agriculture into the city. And getting people to really see where food comes from. And I think it really brings into seasonality and locally accessible produce, and frames that for people as well. Obviously, there's stuff that people want that we can't grow, but it helps develop the conversation of what is possible to grow. And when in this climate, especially in Massachusetts, where we have a lot of constraints on what we can grow when. So it's really a strong long-term relationship with people. We also notice if you stop coming, so we might call you and ask what's up, and try and find you help for other issues outside of just food security.
True. Accountability. Yes. It's always important. Well, thank you all to our amazing panelists, Allie, Megan, Holly, and Megan. Thanks y'all for your great conversation in the chat. This session is recorded and was also live on Facebook on the Farmers Market Coalition page. So you can always go there to watch it again. But otherwise, I think we have a dance break coming up for folks who want to take a break before the next session. So thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the convening.